다 견라 넘버 니다 안에 견람둘라 안에 로도 사만로라야 안에 뇽구 차라 안에 참디셔이.
Good afternoon to our great teachers, the translators, and the classmates.
안에 다 안에 드링한조 안에 다 주시데 안에 가선 다 밀라다네로와 밀라다네 남규 남규 다 남규민다 다 안에 셈용 간데간데 연구도 주시대고라 조데 인스와 안에 대가 안에 당한조 두조 있긴베 안에 다 먼저 글루글루 팽이 sonza ane tuzu kimi hira dama sons ane da labado ande suni gi da roya boche sons and tujes she ins.
Their topic, their project is on looking at the eye expression as a glue for inner emotional states, and since all of them in this team are appearing in the upcoming exam, in the Geluk of the coming, they are kind of very stretched in their time, and but despite that, they are very grateful to Sonia for her wonderful contribution in this, in helping them through it.
ane da nganzo mila taidro age ane nuchobe da mishidang ane poba mishila dane andi minda kando yongudu tsonganzo digona ane jimjucheba ins.
Yeah, so they had two groups, one comprised of Tibetans, another comprised of Westerners.
ane ta ane ngoto geba de ane rato changzo genkiru lagi ngoto nangares.
He's going to pass on the mic to his colleague who happens to be from another monastery, Ratu. And I think he happens to be one of the administrators of the monastery also. My greetings to you all and very good afternoon.
pendulum del chebadas kanju nasla tadi chemde ya ma jaunde da bena ani asia meda ani nocho mi paradas mix ya kanju chebadas naso da tambo chebadas lenan telis.
In terms of in terms of tracing the origin of this project for them, we have heard a lot about visual illusions, and so that kind of drew us to wonder whether way the eyes look, position, are indication as well of inner conditions, and also they wondered whether that might vary among cultures.
당어서 세자가서 또 삼단데 노셔발에 에시아 메디산티스 밀 덕지 미 남주저라 밀 다시 남주 보야 되티스 용라치에서 삼고도 간스나데 아주 지소나 답변은 맞아 배배지도네 나래 미 가로지 밀로타스가 되는 여러 지도 다 두자로지도 배나 자가나 있는데 안콩기 이샤레서 미기 찍되네 람이야 다담들래 어딘지 로시 this makes this time should not check.
Also, partly it was driven by the fact that in Asia, particularly among the Tibetans, in India, we speak a lot about how one either got the right message or wrong message from eye expressions, and he wondered that there might be a difference between Westerners and Asians in this regard. So that's how they got into this.
다단데디 제가 딱제로 최샤 단다 최샤디로 다들 다제 제한에 아주 단다 마이크로소프트
최샤가래.
최샤게 다들
에시아디 망하랬어.
에시아 메디 안에 미 그거 남주들 따진 안미 봐줬지 뒷보아줘라 디 가로
에시아 미기 progress lab고래. 콘조까지 보고.
저봐 밀레 에시아 미가 안에 미 봐줘 미들 따진 안에 sem녀 보아라.
에시아 미기 파하고 그랬어. yeah. Yeah. So their hypothesis is that between the two cultures, Asian and Westerners, it would be Asians would have a more acute sense of the inner happenings by looking at the eye expressions, because they themselves have what do you call a strong culture of using it. So for their experiment, they use these pictures. The first 4 are from Asia, and then the next are from West. And for their particular use, they kind of cut the eyepiece, right? Just the eye strip of all the pictures, and then they use them. So as a clue, they showed four words, four emotional words. The first is supposed to convey anger, the second confusion, the third excitement, happiness, excitement, and then the fourth sadness. So, in terms of how they went about conducting their experiment, I mean, he told that he has 2 groups comprised of Asians, which were all monks from here, and then Westerners, 4 Westerners. And in terms of how they went about doing this was they would first show the pictures without telling what they are for, and then they would show that any one of these stands for either anger, happiness, or excitement, confusion, and sadness. And they were made to kind of compare or kind of identify any one of those within that. And for that they were given set limit of time. We made sure that we really followed the ethical steps, ethical guidelines very strictly, in that we were very clear in asking them whether they wanted to take part in that, and that they would not at all be they would not at all be put off if they could not, etc. Kamanga So in terms of how they distributed the responsibilities, he was carrying the picture, he was showing them, and then one of them measured the time. The resulting data la. Tick. Alright. So they showed 4 pictures under these 4 broad captions. The numbers here represent how much time they took in making the decision.
3 minutes.
And they have calculated the average of the time taken.
다들 좀 버져라 싶어지네. 콘서트. 근데 this 콘서트가 이모리 보고
Diga tujur we.
다들 콘서트 생겨라.
Mal mata di angi di.
네 알겠다. 야자로 쉬어. 근데 콘서트
Tuju. Notuk eh. Okay. So the bar here represents the amount of error.
되게 야자 마파인데 콘서트 이모리 보고잖아. 콘서트 넣어야 돼. 야자 뉴아. 사 찍어 제가 다 쓰고.
So the result was a surprise. It came totally against their hypothesis. The monastics who were part of this study took much longer time, and also there were much more error in identifying the inner emotions by looking at the eye expression. And they conducted for the Westerners, they had the help of Emory students. They could not exercise strict control, better control, which they could have done if they had more similarities between the subjects, because the monastics were all male, and here were 3 female.
Asia made us tongue and this Konamji Delashana, this Chevado Dele. Asia mix Asia mix Patamada, no job mix Patamada, because they saw Gawis and the Polish Asia made this meat done. Namji thought that.
So the one thing that they didn't expect to see, or they hadn't planned on seeing, is that it seems like there is a gender role it plays in the acuteness of identifying the emotions, and that was one understanding they came to know. And another one was Asian Yagdu Lave, Miktael.
Asia Asia meet this part of the Lamsa, this
So in the study they found out that the monks made more errors and whatnot. But in terms of the in terms of the object to look at, the expressions in the eyes of Asians seem to be much more easier to be understood, detected. So that's. He has a question. Thank you, Michael.
가정 하마치 저 가르치에서는 아니 벅 아주 머리지여라 대니 지 야콩인 것이 다른 것을 버진 저지 버지여라 한테 가르치가 요 mấy 동서 봐요 한테 희도 쳐서 딱다데 힘죽도 차송 reg문도
말했다. 한스 스텝 중에서
군수 힘죽 제동제 딱다 내는
he is not satisfied with the way they conducted the study.
가정 하마 힘죽이 제라고 가서 이티 제에 뭐 디등 가서 가르치 선으로 와 머리지여라 야콩인 버들
거기
그래서 그 머리가 머리가 따서 봐요 힘죽이 차송한 맛이에요 제가 좀 전에 신보지 기억도
So he doesn't think that the way they conducted is scientific, and partly he's worried about the outcome of their study, in that earlier they did this study maybe during biology or some other class, during which time they kind of went after proving that the Tibetans were part of Chinese, and then today they are coming up with results saying that the Asians are not that acute in understanding the result, in the understanding the inner happenings, and as well as they seem to be much more much more nuanced in making eye expressions.
That the case that the Pili Lashto. Pili Lighting was a near South Sage came out, and getting him a lasso. Taja didn't jungle Matash and the Shigas did it. Near South Sage and the Sage and they're getting him a sage. That and that thing also kinds of meek did it. JC also discovered a chance to go to the end of disease and they are not touch a hatch with the Tamil Judge.
So we can be very sure that there were no biases there. We just did it objectively. That's how we are supposed to do. And also there were some constraints like time, etc. And like within short period, we had to come up with something. And
We have to move to the next presentation. I like the fact that they disproved their hypothesis.
Yes.
That's the first one that disproved their hypothesis. And you accepted the facts.
소셜 재반에시 딱다 마 되면 봐. 이 코는 당보리스. 아니, 와. 소셜 재반에시 딱다 레마서 생긴 당보로 와. 어제니 딜라 겐라 뭐 보충.
다 통화된 것을 Greetings
to everyone, including our three teachers, on behalf of Group 10. Their project has to do with analyzing color. So following strictly the outline that you provided us, it seems like we have some 18 things to deal on.
They
are doing their best in presenting and attending to these different topics.
Tandashidang Pari the Petzing to the 6 which is Inayang and Sachi Matu Chede and Ngaton me gone to teach Chinese.
Although they have their survey. Oh, yeah. They have some images, etc. to show, but first they are going to explain things verbally.
I think
it's a Stroop. I think it's a Stroop test. They are saying it has to do with color and has to do with congruent, incongruent, and how much mistakes they make and how long they take.
And Labat Pachim Pachinaki Maiba and Koto to Chetis.
The importance of this project they are undertaking is to convey the message that our brain doesn't work like camera.
Tangazuki Tsuja the Kari is and a Kato Timbano Moat and Matibano and a Noat and Goatis.
Their hypothesis is that in this Stroop test, people would have they would have less mistakes in the case of identifying the color of congruent examples, congruent samples, and the other way around for the incongruent ones.
Tangazu Tachi the Karasana and Mangala and Kado Chana. Jotan to the Yandu you get to metin and Noat and Goat and a Nulugun Chavatais.
So they conducted this experiment on 5 people to whom they showed
No, Mangachi, Kalane, Kalanda, Kala, Sosugi, get your and
they were exposed to 10 samples.
And Takarsan Natsuki, Tachi Tunjitra, Tunjitane, Kado Timbana, Tata Jotubatan, and then Metibana, and then Nacha Sunsanli, and then Jiba. to things.
So in terms of the result that they predicted, it was that the people who do much better and less error in regard to congruent samples, and not so much in the incongruent ones. Rather, in the incongruent ones, they predicted that there might be 3/5 of mistakes. Not 3/5 of the person's mistake. All right. So in terms of what they measured was they were showing different colors to different people to observe. They conducted it just once to each. So it was done on 5 people once. In terms of the detailed ways of conducting the measure, he's passing the mic to his friend. So definitely this is a Stroop test where they use names of colors along with color codes in which they are presented. So some were congruent, some were not. So basically they were showing these different samples, congruent, both congruent and incongruent in random forms, and what they were measuring particularly was looking at whether they get it right or wrong, or if they get it right, how long they take, and the time allocated is 3 seconds. If I understood it clearly, he was saying that in their case, there were no errors whatsoever in the congruent samples, whereas in the incongruent samples, there were even cases where they could get it right very quickly, but not all of them.
Five minutes.
Oh, come on, do.
No, day any dingy. Any taste this and taste Genomogo at it, true to it.
Mingalarwa.
Mangal Maryland, Santa de Kiri.
Yeah, so there were 5 subjects, and each one was shown 10 times, not 10 times, 10 of those color samples, Stroop samples, and in total, those who got right, so that would be our total of 50, out of 50, 37 got right, 7 were wrong, and then 6 took little longer in getting right.
What in that it's a yard of the Dani and Tamataling, that's a yard. Any Tamatindi, any Tagarata, Sayat Trinity passage Jashodo.
So the outcome of the study confirmed their hypothesis in that there were much less mistake in the congruent samples.
Lola Mashawa, the Karis and Sitanta, Tezilin Mambo Chiton, the Koani, Teg, Tise, the Kalamanda, the Tondi, any tell Gola, any Noah, Tindiji Yombate, Hakosans. Any Hamogo at the Karis and that Tindiji Yombate, any quite Jensen of Karalat in Yonga Yameta, any Lepana and Lebalagora,
lepak chawa kandi chi chigi yomi ani ti ta mihiwa do de tension songs ani
So yeah. So what became clear in them through this study was that was the actual observation of actual thing that they observed in terms of how people can sometimes even get it wrong, get it right even when there is a mismatch between the color and the wording. But then there were some who would take much longer. So that phenomena of getting it
3 minutes.
getting it wrong or taking it longer was very apparent to them. But in terms of why such is happening, what might be going on at the brain level, what not, they were interested to know. But at this time, they do not have any clear understanding. But they are looking forward to dig deeper and understand more. So this concludes their presentation. If people have questions, they are happy to ask.
You finished with 2 minutes to spare.
On your other slide, you had
37, 7, 6. You had 5 subjects. So what does the 37 represent? How many slides they got right altogether, or what do these numbers represent?
Thank you. Some of doing the rooks to us. This some of doing the any angidi kari angides. Mikazu mingap chura mingane. Thingma chu ngapchurwa. Oh, ngap chunirwa. Ngap chun dig with some of the So that was the total number of correct quick answers out of 50.
In the congruent or the incongruent?
In the congruent.
In the congruent.
In the congruent. Ale. The Dixon said the dibula and the timber the mitumaniga did with Rawa. Timber did what you got a mitumare.
카드 jotu 가 세브라 마브레 카드 jotu 죠 텐지가 가르치는
Mata. You got it. Oh, that's the total of both congruent and incongruent examples where they got it right.
Oh, both.
Yeah.
텀바도 파진 노아도 제 용문도 자상권 차차차 나온더라. 담은 텀바는 야 가지게 까보레라라 거 방이게 가르치잖아. 대 이게 까보티잖아. 까보란 된들
By the way, this information, if you are interested, can be dug out very well, very easily, because in our case there was not a single congruent sample being mistaken.
Okay. Thank you.
This is just. So this is group 11.
Tene tanda ne lokon chimo gi number samda ani kanyi mai dajir loza number ni chi ani lorum tibin tashin loma ani chamala da ningo de le shobalas.
To our wonderful teachers, the translators, and the graduating class.
Tene tanda tambodila ni ngotus chena ani geng chala ani gen tenzi darjilare ani geng chala santi chibir ani kona bani tasan loselare.
By way of introduction, here we have Tenzin Dargela, Venerable Tenzin Dargela from Loseling. Here is Samten Chojela from Loseling.
Tani again ani Losel Gurung ani khordan sacha ta.
He is Venerable Losang Gurung from Sakya Monastery.
Ani ngi mangala chitum sanu jage ani gomata sa.
I am Sudim Sonam from Goman.
Tani tanda ngotu tusi ani tanda tenda nyam tanda ngaso tisu shira me inza. ani ngaso joji ganglan de sheta ta tashi kan chi ba de ani geng gi gare ta ngaso ni ti maran do ta chi she yang ku chi she ni cha cha ro do te mo go chi ins.
I mean, we want to make it very clear that everyone is very well versed in how we conducted and everything. So everyone could explain everything, but due to time constraint, we have to confine it to just one person. So we are going to pass it on to Venerable Losang Gurung La.
And
then if you still have questions, then we have other two experts in the team spared who could explain it.
Tanita ngete nyam de nga sungunita ginamba sodan to sola tiji chi chi la ra 아니 긴 넘버 숨도 전에 다 사자 하창 그 타랑 보니 내가 아니 각각 침보레스 아니 데델인데니 팬이 가서라다 아니 원사 차리 거니 지 시인 나고도 mambo시 때요레스 아니 대단냠다 가지지매나 양가서 mam보시라야 니세데 저기요 말레스 메디 잠발라 당가저가 70분이 아니 지 카츠마임바 아니 셈타니 아니 gelana baso tiji cheja dans maombi susu go mesi toina ta genso gon chenda ji sani kari ba ta da mangi bayina ani tamba majiya da ani susu yang che tansu ta ina susu tanda ga tisi de chikawa da ma chi da ani tusum khoya chi ke tisu chi la che yus.
So before he misses in doing this, he want to make sure that he seizes his time in acknowledging the kindness, the gratitude, acknowledging the kindness to our three wonderful teachers for the wealth of knowledge that you gave us, for which you had to undergo several troubles in coming so far, and undergoing challenges, whatnot. And then, yes, this understanding could not happen without the medium of translators. So to them also we are thankful, but particularly to you, the three teachers. We may not remember your name exactly as we go on, but we will definitely clearly remember this occasion and the others, and we will always cherish those memories. That will definitely be a time, every time we do so, of excitement and rejoicement in having had this opportunity, and we are sending all of our hearty prayers and wishes to you. Thank you. So here we are going to pass on the mic to our other colleague, Lobsang Gurungla, and ask you all not to miss out on this opportunity in listening to his expert explanation. Tashidelek to all. He is not so proficient, he is not so used to public speaking like this, so pardon him if there were some signs of nervousness that might creep in and affect the presentation. First they are going to, what do you call, stick to the outline in the worksheet in covering their project, and then if time allows, then he would have a few extra things to share. So in terms of question, they have this question before them, that whether or not the words that are familiar to you or not would make a difference in how easily or not you can recall them. Digressing a little bit from here, in the traditional systems, in the traditional educational systems, the teachers seem to be very intent in making sure that the students learn, and for that they are open to trying any means whatsoever, be that taking resort to rods or And they are totally against that kind of extreme approach.
당가족이 좀 접하다 갈라나 안 디리체 오버 민도 소소 가주 디리체였는데 또 올라왔다 템바 갈라 솔라이르스.
So and then their hypothesis on this basis, on this question is that yes, definitely familiarity will play a role in making the words easier to access, easier to remember, and easier to understand.
당가족이 딱지 기름 간에 지나라.
5 minutes.
딱지 기름 가르치는 럽투가 에모리 럽투가 아니 더 럽투가 안디 아니 민시라 주둑니 게데 아니 럽투 칼라 수수다 디리쳐요가다 안 게데 디리쳐 메바 아니 까마칭나 로 주고주라 안디니 까마차가 퍼센샤 아니 까마칭 라과 수야 라과 주어된 디리치스 텐디
까마칭레 안 까마 까지 숨주 가 So in terms of how they conducted the experiment, they had two groups. One comprised of Emory students, 5 of them, and then another monastics, monastics who were of the same age group, and to each of them they were shown 16 names, 16 words, out of which 8 should be familiar and others rest not familiar. And they were shown that they were shown these 16 words for 1 minute and left a half-minute gap, and then after that they were asked to recall them.
당가족이 담고 갈로다 초바 가르치려느라 게니라 소소다 더웨기 찌게 민찌게니 툭 랍투고 레스라 아니 소소다 더웨 메비 찌니 뇽탈라 아니 시다 숨 카노 랍투고 레스 당가된데 초바.
What they predicted to be the result is that from among the 8 familiar words, people will be able to recall 6 easily, and from among the unfamiliar words of 8, they would be able to recall not more than 4. So this is the data. This is the data they have collected.
3 minutes.
아니 에모리부 응아니라 디와다 마디와 타마 디와데 가지고 건조까지 tukju를 기준이 안너 덤바자와데 아니 니슈 아니 좀 가르다 너와데 투거스.
So the total here halfway through is that reflects the performance of the Emory students, and that of the monks is underneath. So you can see correct answers. Emory's outdid the monks, and then in terms of forgetting also they forgot less, and then in terms of false response they have more.
근데다 에모리도나 대화처 얘기 찍으라게 안 찍게 순주성이라 두레스라 아니 대화처면요 아니 니tab질라레스.
In terms of the Emory students, out of the related or familiar words, they were able to recall 32, whereas for the unrelated or unfamiliar words, they were able to recall 28.
이제 더가지 니짱하다 니짱이.
But the data for the monks is 25 and 22 respectively. So this is the graph that reflects that same data. That's the main result. The color blue is the familiar words performance, and that of the red is that of the unfamiliar words performance. This reflects the performance of the monks in regard to those two categories of words, whereas this is Emory.
1 minute.
So this is the average. Even in terms of the average also, what they predicted came very, very close. They predicted 6. This is almost 6. 5.7 is 6. But in terms of the unrelated words, unfamiliar words, they predicted it would be 4, but it just was little over it.
Thank you.
다음에. 다음에. 단다 주주 넘어서 걔 주주는 게 얘기로. 말해. 어야.
당아도 로라 마셔기 미스 가르친다는 상마기 된데 주룩니 주룩 랍투그레 테마스로 이네 가시지 미지기 에모리 보모지기 랍성스다디.
Wow. One thing that came out as surprise was that they never expected that any one of them could recall all of the 16. But there was one Emory student, Emory girl, who recalled all 16.
당아도 자기 믹스 잡고 주면서 탱당보러 하긴 네가 두즈다 미다 간지톤 하고 주면서.
Yeah, this is the first time they are conducting this kind of research, and so there were many lapses, many deficiencies there, but going forward they can be very sure that they could do much better. Yeah.
What's her name? I want her to be my teaching assistant.
Following ethics, they're not giving the identity.
Oh, yes, of course, right.
I'm following the ethics, I'm not relating it to them.
Right, even better. So what is the importance?
걔네도 너네 믹스기 걔네기 지금 랍자라고 데다 야 지금 고등도 그 중소해.
디니 갈네체 라베게.
데디 데네 랍자 개세로.
랍자 가르치는 하게 소소다 딜리체기 잘라든으로 하게 아니 가르는 실라요 레스라. 안 딜리체 메기기 잘라든도 아니 또가요 김진기로 하게 아주 아니 기긴지 베천으로 룹투기 아니 삼로지라게 그 하고에 대해 개청 벌써 잡종기 하고에 대해 개청 벌써 잡종 정말 집어지게 샤 아니 부분들 집어지겠다는 디다 마대와 차고래서.
So the takeaway message from this is that just even taking the example of teaching, it is very important for the teachers to be aware of this fact that familiarity would have much greater impact in learning things. So it would be good to take time in knowing the background of the students in terms of what they are familiar with, and then kind of utilize that as a vantage to kind of convey messages. That way there is more prospect of things sticking.
Okay, great. Let's move on.
누가 네 저거 거기래. 중이 된다. 저리 제고 왜? 배다. 예. 내 백일날 개인기 중에 돼. 저기 에머리 롭주다 가지고 내 구셔서 바로 돌배 따지지와. 이걸 아니 또 공수 숨기 있어.
There's another possible interpretation, especially when you're surprised, and that is that Emory students may be much more accustomed to participating in experiments and these kinds of tasks than the monks would be.
디가레를 남나 에머리 롭주다 초질 에머리 롭주다 초질 구셔서 아니 샤베 두려야죠. 두려야지 나올라 저기 또스 할래 중소 미치기다 아니 민식 아니 주주 강가 랍토스 해야 되는 여러 딜에 따단 심바 제야 요레스 에머리 롭주도 밖에 코리오 코레 나올라 데네 따지 규림 나올라 망보 쉬우쉬우 그랬어. 이제 영야 냠냠이 그랬어. 데네 따지 데네 디가 데네 채워 써야 되는데 이제 데네 돈에 개발 주 있으게 됐어.
So in the future you might want to give them equally novel tasks.
이제 지만 따지 데네 채워 갑라. 아니야 디조에 삼시나 주네. 아니 지기 가서래 데네 삼주나 주베 돈에 아니 지 개발 마주야 가족들도 개발 마주 찍어서 개발을
이 가서 가로 빠지지 들어와 에모를 저기 보고서 아니 저저 쉬어지는 기운이야 좀 제대로 아니 가서 잡아서 있는 근처로 지금 무슨 이렇게
one thing they observed must have really made a difference also was Emory students were taking it very seriously. But the monks were just, I mean, even when they were in the subject, they were just taking it casually. They weren't kind of taking it as a big deal. So that must have.
Yes, that's also
Then they are insignificant. 다인다.
제가 가르 깔볼레 빵토시 또 마품 연소를 땅세고 저도 그룹이 얘기 남바다.
He opened up almost with a poetic expression of saying, your love outshines the whiteness of the snow on snow mountains, and your knowledge is much deeper than that of the oceans. He opened up with a poetic expression. That's what
Ramari ki kai la ton sab sha kari jen ji yang la phusan sobat na be kani ma lo sa na ba
And he's not even stopping there. He's continuing, even in referring to the translators, saying, "Oh, you have very pure sense of allegiance to your own culture, but at the same time have deep understanding of others also." So.
Chizun songre gile le ship tse yu lobro changma la ngazo ruka jingyi be deje ruka ngwe ni thoma chamre test dire shui.
Oh, even referring to his colleagues also, he's kind of being poetic in saying that they are well versed in both the worlds of spirituality and worldly aspects.
Look, but leave some time for your presentation.
Digidus inaya tanda de shiti chean tuzu shira yamade jona das.
Tangazo tizu dira tizu nyu tanzen chebe thonira ana ngazo ngos ni lakta chego kharchi me kola ani genshi lag songre.
Okay, so don't worry, we are very, very mindful of our time, and so with that, I'm passing on the mic to the colleague.
Okay, you have 10 minutes.
Come on, dost.
Dagi. Kamajugi tisetina dandati bed nganso nga koru karjin lobe chimbuji yinsone dagarodina panrosha yins.
10 minutes is a good length of time. All this time I'm going to utilize with this confidence that I am a big professor.
당한소디 아니 동보 좋아 동보데 아니 양식 간지 제레서 나서 나진 소리 틀려 아니 배나 이보 카시지 아니 짐바 야보스 통다 이보 카시지 짐바드니스 통데 대 가르치이나 쓰니다 좋아데 동보디 든디 준 거레스.
The question before them was, in our everyday life, we experience that with regard to certain things, there is hardly any difficulty in recalling them and keeping them in our memory. But in some other cases, irrespective of how much you struggle, you seem to always have to struggle to kind of recall them and remember them.
다들 개침보인 바닥에 아니 가서먹이 탈은 진단용데 계시라 아니 니바들 가서 때 아니 가로서 세장라고 가르친 회생이 보스로 소속이 유때마데 로세 때마데 드린다고 제바 이나선네 다 드린다고 세자 제버레스.
So in terms of trying to understand that, they kind of decided on this hypothesis that maybe it has to do with the attention. Whether when you are paying attention, that may be what you have is easier way of recalling them. If not, then not.
다 드는 가서 때 세자 제디 좀 발라 다 가느라고 제고서는 가서 파스 뒤모 뭐저라 안디 버르딩 가서 파스 뒤모 전에 아니 빠든지 니지우지라서 아니 빠들 따치네 아니 유때마데고네 다 세자 쪼데 대체버.
So in terms of how they might test this, then they had to brainstorm, and eventually they come up with the idea that maybe we'll do that by showing pictures, and then see where people's attention is going, etc.
당한서 간디 동터 누야 되페나라기 아니 빠 두스판 드니테네라기 다디노 아니 무추 탐바 아니 다 주탐바니 소가니 제네라기 아니 소가찌들 가르치에르스나 판들 따네 동보 콘솔 파케제 파시리 좀발라 판디기 아니 세 종우인 것인데기 종크 인케 테솔 따쇼라네 다 동보 콘솔 드니케시에레스.
So for this experiment, they used two groups of 10 each, and to one they were asked to look at the green vegetables on this.
아니 이바들 아니 이 그루심바데게 단나 이 무추 따다여가 대솔 무시기 정크세 마타지 아니 판들 때셔서네다 콘솔 깨지 디시바레스.
To the other group, when they would show this picture, they wouldn't introduce. They would only tell them to just look at the picture in general, not saying your attention to go to the green ones. So in both the cases, they were given the same length of time, 15 seconds.
아니 니갈 빠따체네 아니 심바 따차니 저와 가르당하는데 빠 디나라
Now, after they have had the chance of looking at it in those two different ways, the same question that was asked instead was, did they see the onion there?
다단도 세사진 바지라. 아니 간소기 다 세사기 둥된다 버지여다. 티나.
This 세사베.
세사여긴. 네 아니 탄제르가 세사다 중거라기 세사라. 당간소기 세사라고 가르쳐놓은 거에서나 아니 페셰디 아니 미 주스기 통이나 미 덴지기 통인지를 했었네. 단도 토마디 정글 마다제 소말 따라야지 여러기 반들다 드네르 토지를 상지다. 아니 심바디기 아니 정글 따셔라 정글 가디기 페시 미숭기 토지를 해서 간소 세사 잡았디레스.
By the way, this is not a representation of the result. It is a representation of their hypothesis. What they hypothesized was the all group and the green group. Between the two, their hypothesis was that among the all group, out of 10, 7 would be able to see the onion, whereas in the case of the green, they could see dirwa, that they could see 3. But then, in terms of when they went about undertaking the tenda, but this is the actual result. It turned out to be not quite the same, but out of 10, 6 could tell the onion's presence, whereas in the case of the green group, only 1 could tell. Come on.
아니 가서 단다디 세사제리 좀마게 단다 저와 당사데 단다 담본디 라우트라노디 부서 돈에디 티라기 아니 동봉 가서 날제기테레 날제디 좀발라 정글 따셔랑이디 가서 정간은 대통이 미치일레마서.
So first they didn't think that they would have to do with 10 people in a group. But then what happened was, when they were in the process of conducting it, the first 5 could not at all see the onion.
인형 가서 미 대반내네 연주띠가는 민가 아니 상한다 드니노 반도네 이케제티데 드니지 드는 타마들 미치기 단다 들어서 대만게 몬체아디 춘이 단다디 중디 간드 주된 통소야라나 만돌랑이 준저는 디스콜.
And so they went about recruiting another 5 in each of the group, and it's only when they recruited the second 5 that only 1 among the green group could recall the presence of onion.
당한솔로로 마찬가지로 가르쳐서는 오늘 저는 그 가서 정말 중대 단다디 세 종이 기마 따다 사자라기 이
세된다.
네 기마 따다 사자라기 저 패션데 까만 정말은 내서 따셔라디 패션된 통제해서
감정을 말아.
가서 정말 통제해서 뒤져봐라. 당연히 된 동계 밑줄 깨졌더니 밑줄 맞지 마서 대배는 가서 써 있는 데만 쳐서.
Yeah, one thing surprising was this green group, even the green group, when they are asked specifically to look at the greeneries, and in the middle of the greenery is the onion. So they were expecting more people would recall onion, but surprisingly only 1 out of 10.
당한서 단다디 아니 중대디 아니 다 단지직 담자이다게 다기 개침부인 바데 당한서디 개침부인 바 간지 통요에서는 저도는 남진 소유 트레를 양한서 아니 레카 가르쳐 봐이나 소소기 아니 베네드는 언딘다 때나라기 당이 직도 연주저이다 아니 다 첩세산 세산은 한서 아니 골라 좀리디 강라기 아니 간소 소소기 아니 소위 때는 얘네 아니 좀리 짱네 아니 몽보질래야 아니 유때 마트어지 아니 사용처지 아니 좀리 짱래야 인지바더니 몽볼래야 계속해치 무시라이서레스.
So the takeaway message from this is that attention plays a very, very big role in how aware you are, and so and if we keep on being inattentive, and if at all just attentive on one's own vested interests, then the prospect of the world at large will have been neglected and could suffer. And these are examples of how, even at this very point of our history, there are so many global level problems that we are confronting, and those are a result of attention not going in the right place.
강의시 만약에 명보지기 제 투에 임발라 마체제 노메산에 되는 몸보지 되는 하제네 내가서 콜라jelaba 아니 주몽바라요서레스.
This is the result of inattention and inaction, not a result of inability. If at all we paid attention to it, these are things that we could have taken care of and would have avoided.
아니 기토네 세제나 간서 정말 로트라기 다단다 로트이디 잠발라 아니 안전다다 로조집이 고로첼이야 아니 소소기 단다 아니 고야 쪼온다고 돼서 다 방선다비나 디노니 제자 쪼온다고 돼서라 아니 미시기 유때 토바이나 안들팀바야뇨 야고냐토에서 드니 소소 쳐바슈요서레스.
And in the case of student life, the students in that period of life, they are engaged. The one task at hand is studying, and that's where they should not miss out in paying their attention to.
아니 지라 아니 가서 다단다 아니 로트 제시미 갑슬라 아니 단다디 유때마데다 돼서 정말 단다디 아니 셀냐투무토라야데 아니 조 단다디 소소 로트 제비 거슬레 유때마데 지지라기 진 이때 바데서요 단다 소소 단다디 개인기 가서 tre바나지 아니 조다메다 아니 코즐레지 콘서 티모이 테네 단다 레가 제데워서 단다 텐데 아니 템보드니냐 투에 있어레스.
And even in the case of areas that you pay attention to, it is very important that you get both hippocampus and amygdala engaged, and so that the two in tandem could do a better job in retaining things.
인가서 아니 시기 단다 까마치기 디세들 라우티체텔라 아니 다 베드티 소다마다 아니 코슬레제니가 레가체네 무슨 강살 베드 다 냥사서스.
We are very sure that the effort that we put in making the presentation and the attention that we paid in doing so in every step of the process, we're very sure that everything that we went got the attention of both the hippocampus and the amygdala, and it is assured that the lessons will be sustained. Any questions do you have?
Danadi Trembanolia nya tudumatu said the Yite Martin Jilan. Oh, the Shishes, and the Yite said the onson of Juna Iti Gurabetayana and the Kanunach Iti Guru. Penami, Luanda in the Zula and pay you to Zula meet said the Kanunach Shaguris, or discharge.
So the whole presentation dwelled on attention. What do you mean by attention? Through what means can we do that? Say in the case of a person who is blind, how would he be able to pay attention with his eye blind, where his visual senses should be directed? How could he do that?
Tamba kia di ita madan daya ye madana tamba kia yo marjini ra chik tambo di che niwa di inji mi chike ne ngazu jila tamba kia da mik chik yodo chi to yin inji mi chike mik shi gyun to go mar lo de so do sa ra nin jambu yin ba tsubu yin ba ra on de so cham to yo res.
So definitely there is a link between attention and memory. What you remember is definitely dependent on what amount of attention you were able to pay, and then it is not paying attention is not just merely confined to visual capacity. Even if one doesn't have vision, through the other senses one could pay attention, and that way wherever attention went, you will be able to recall it better.
도도세자는 간다 여때마다 세대 소화식 침비간에 내가 가르쳐 있는 다가로 이때 세레스다.
In nutshell, let me get it to you. Attention. When I meant attention, everything that you do, if you do that with a sense of with a strong sense of involvement, and that's what attention is.
다 토마딜라 아니 사다림보네 도와 체드 주전왕이 아니 겐 넘버 순츠보다 아니 기준 넘버 아니 참말라 아니 참르추고 요스.
My greetings to everyone, to our wonderful teachers who have come from so far, to our interpreters and the classmates.
아니 다 간조 응어텐도 디치바이나 간조 디 춤술리티비 아니 레코지.
This group has only 3 members.
디나로 아니 베바니도 소보지체 아니 게 아니 소볼로존슈 아니 게 아니 세노로 팅이미나 다와튼리 수요.
Among them we have a Mongolian and 2 Tibetans.
아니 단단가조 다게 zo di jejin do de ani zo no la mangi che no la mangi nalu la ani ya no la mangi shu chi ju ke ani teni jing ta nga zo ani mango de che is.
Yeah, so the topic of their presentation is Nang Lamange. Nang Lamange, which means where you could, where there is perception but not retention.
And
then he's going to pass it on to Gen Sunam Lutila for making the presentation. So the topic, as mentioned earlier, was this case, was this phenomena where we could see something, where we could perceive something, but not retain it, and that's something that happens to everyone. But there may be a degree of how much that happens, and in terms of a degree, in general, we could say that two people collectively would have less such case. Two people collectively would have less such case of perceiving something but not retaining, whereas in the case of one individual, there could be more case of that. So what they meant by that is, suppose you have a scenario where two people are engaged in discussion or engaged in debate. Because there are two people, two minds involved, there will be less case of perceiving but not retaining. Whereas when one is on by oneself and maybe studying whatnot, but there is every chance of any kind of a any kind of a distraction kind of taking over, which would then cause things being seen but not being able to be recalled. So their hypothesis was that two minds, more than one minds combined together, engaged in a work, would do better in retaining things. So that was the hypothesis. And in terms of carrying out this experiment, they had two groups of people, four each. But in terms of one group, the two were called together to look at the picture, whereas in the other group it was just individually. The image used in the experiment was the first picture that happened, which happened to have 16 items. So in total there are 16 items in here. Oh yeah. So they were given a list of the 16 things together with 3 other things which are not in here. So they were given a list and they are asked to recall from their memory of what are in there.
아니 다야 로진아 다 미니가 로티 드르노야라 코니가 드르니 아니 가제셴니 투줄라 타지가리 타지리 땅가서 내가 너라 지금 멍통다 지고 있어요. 다다야 marta ngazu chochang ro kan is yong gre se ji ora tere tan tan do ro ta ngazu ha.
So the picture down, up there is just a representation of what they predicted.
Oda ngazu dan nana yujuge ni monto to zutre ani ta gichire girginski ya jang tu se ando ani girgin gashin du se ando ta tawa gashin du gawa shin du se yora tani pamba shin du pamba se ya de ngoni dang shan dina yomar to ani dan di zmondo skura parula chi sho jure tani ani chapur shin du laba ya shin du ani kaptong marbun du kapchak chawu ji du se to kapchak chawu yomare.
So yeah, so in terms of the items that are listed to be present there together with things that are not there, it goes something like that. There is a teacher standing, there is a teacher sitting too, there are few monks sitting, there is a pillar there, there is a vase, a pot which is not there, and then there is a teapot, there's one hand, red chair, grey chair, etc.
Oda counter dishola yuju de chatangre mini ni ko loti durni ani kai jura to jabdi chi bachi changre khuzula ta chi yati karma chi la ta chi yori mara to jabdi ani mini loti dura ina durni ani to jab chi yamar lo to jabdi
5 minutes.
So yeah, come on, yes. So in terms of conducting the experiment, how they did was this is the pair group, that is the odd group. So here they went in pair in looking at the picture and in looking at the picture together and even discussing and whatnot. But then when their remembrance was taken, it was done individually. And then this is the individuals who were exposed, and their recalling capacity was also taken note of individually.
어때들이 대동 드린 가서 다 용데 아니 단디노라 아니 니부 찌르게라 아니 동비 가서 요래 야주는데 차성와 아니 고소 자토성이나 단다 예를 두고도 어들이 차성와 거이나 아니 17개 요래 나라
So yeah, so
17개 요래 미시로
So since each group has four members and the items present there was 16, so it comes to a total of 64.
어다 니나니로와 공수 니도지 같은 예리는 아니 17경이 the 차유주.
Yeah, in terms of those who went in pairs, they recall 49.
아니 야도 주건 가리리 30경이.
And those who went individually, they could recall only 38.
뜻이라 뜻이 간다더니 뜻나 예를 도시한테. So this
is their graph. This is the number of items listed. This is the odd group. This is the even group. So this is the same data being represented differently. This is the same data being represented with pointers. So this is just a different way of representing it within a space. So using different special dimension in representing the data, but otherwise it's the same data. So in terms of percentage, the performance, in terms of percentage, the performance of the odd group was 59%, and that of the even group was 76%.
당시에 나라망이 미참마다 용거리에서 소적들랑 딱딱 직접 미참마다 나라망이 용거도스 마이 드니 차당 야니기는 아니 진짜 야장들 나라망이 마 용거리에서 대가랑 가서 소적들아니 네 디자그 잡전로 지송시.
So in terms of hypothesis, they had two components of it. One, that everyone would have this phenomena of not being able to recall things that they may have already perceived, and then on top of that, they also hypothesized that if we work together, if two minds or more than one minds work together, come together, and they kind of observe the same identity and same item and same object, and then discuss between them, there is the greater chance of the individuals themselves doing better in recalling.
아니 가수라 강 나와디 니고였으면 됐어. 가수 펜저길람니 손디. 소소라 깨침버 치와티즈 마토 깨총아 동서 아니 니 먹어디 아니 텔라코 나라마기한데 요발레 김승가리 요리즈 아니 티탄라 아니 니실로 땅고요 말레스. 인디텔라 김승치기 됐어. 아니 쩐다고 요요바리다 나라마기 요디. 김승형 됐어.
Yeah, how they came up with this phenomena was primarily what do you call primarily driven by evolutionary awareness. In that by evolution we have evolved to be attentive to some and not to everything, because it has evolutionary benefit in doing so. But at the same time, in doing so, in the sense that you'll be able to conserve your energy into the salient features, not to everyone. Of course, in terms of the liabilities, of course, if we tend to not recall things, it could have some costs.
주시고에 저거 다데네 그래서나 간제토 그래서 남담을 로고 간제토 같이 되시자위 데네 단다 차례지게 인사 게 넘버 something 게 넘버 something 다시 두지치 쇼와다 데네 게저라야 게죠 야오지 주셔와 데네 두지치 데네 러른 도가 나 다와 금바 참아라데는 우측이 잡나 제가 속이 되시죠지 야오직 아니나 고 수야직 차여나 베지수일인지 데니 두지 체슈이
Right. So he wants to take this opportunity in thanking everyone on behalf of their group. He was thanking the teachers, mentioning how grateful they are for the knowledge that you have imparted by taking all those troubles, by facing all those troubles. And he was making very sure that this translator, you do translate about the translator thing. If I mention this is about the translator, make sure you mention. So he was thanking the translators, and he wanted to make sure that the translator translates that. And to the colleagues, he said, "Oh, you paid."
It's almost 3 o'clock, but I was going to ask them to clarify the odd versus even categories. I wasn't completely clear about what.
So when they were shown the pictures, in the even group, they brought 2 together.
Just 2?
Yeah. Just two together, whereas in the other one, they exposed it 1 individual at a time. Yeah.
So odd is 1.
Yeah, odd is 1. Tangi chada ya sungai di chada ya takji shaka dudu kala ninyam do doya dan chikhejan doya shimba. Odu sin do kandes do ina kongdo wa. La so tak dudu simso. Yeah. It should be break for tea. Yeah. 다 당주 소재 발생